and welcome back to what is kind of the sequel to my Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald review. But don't worry, if you haven't seen that one yet, you can absolutely watch this video without it. This is just my take on how to fix some of the things that I thought was annoying with the movie. Actually just rewrite it completely. But if you're interested, there will be a link up in the corner or down in the description and you can go and watch it afterwards. As I said in my review, this video is going to be about how I would have made the stories that J.K. Rowling are trying to tell right now, because I do believe that there is an interesting story there. There might even be two interesting stories there, but it sure isn't what we're being given right now. And before we begin, I just want to do a few quick disclaimers. First of all, I am very aware that I am not a best-selling, somewhat beloved author. I am also not a big filmmaker, I don't have a big studio, all of that. This is from a fan seeing some things in a franchise that she loves very much, obviously, and my take on how I would have done it, or at least what I would like to have seen instead. Which kind of ties into the second disclaimer. These are obviously nowhere near finished. The plots I tell you here are just the major plot lines, ideas of what I think could have been interesting to delve into instead, so there's still a lot missing because I obviously didn't sit down and write 6 screenplays because I ain't got the time for that. And thirdly, I'm one of those people who gets annoyed when she messes with the canon, but the canon for these characters, at least the period of their lives that these stories are concerned about, mostly told on Pottermore, and it's a bit hard to try and find all like the exact dates and stuff, so I've done my best, but if it messes with some of the canon and I've forgotten something, well, that's just the world we live in. Okay, without any more disclaimers or further ado, let's get right into it. In my head, these stories are split up, so we have the Newt part and the Grindelwald part into 2 separate trilogies. Why trilogies, you ask? Well, one, because you have more time to explore the characters, which time is one of the things that this franchise is lacking very much. Secondly, with the choices that Rowling has been making lately, it's clear that she cares a lot about the money that comes in from this franchise. And in this way, you get 2 new franchises and a whopping total of 6 movies, which means more money, more merchandise. She's happy, the producers or whatever, Warner Bros. Are happy, and we get more content that has more time and is more thought out. Not saying that this couldn't possibly be made into 1 movie. I've never actually tried to write a feature yet, so, you know, that's why it's a trilogy. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, in my head, is actually what it says on the tin. It's Newt traveling out, finding fantastic beasts, writing it down, making the book, voila, here we go. The first movie is right when Newt is being thrown out of school, as we've been told that he was. And in my head, this movie focuses on his relationship with his brother, so we kind of see what has happened there. Why don't they like each other? Is it because they're vastly different people? Does he have to live up to his brother the entire time and feels like he's like worth less? I don't know. Tell me. Show me. And if you want to keep Lita in the story, which in my head she doesn't need to be there, but if you want to keep her there, this is where you do that as well. You explore their friendship. How does it feel that he's getting thrown out even though she's the supposed troublemaker? What does that do? After he gets thrown out, I see him travel around England and finding small beasts that people probably know about already. Think How to Train Your Dragon, but with magical creatures. Newt finds creature, gains its trust, learns how it works, writes down little notes so when he encounters it again, he'll know. And gradually we see him finding more and more creatures that get a little bit bigger. And also, I see him kind of helping the communities that they're in, so like, he'll get this reputation for being the guy you can go to if you have problems with like little garden gnomes or something like that. He'll help out little small families being like, hey, this is how you deal with these creatures. Now, this, of course, doesn't go unnoticed by the Ministry, because here we have a guy who has been thrown out of his institution. He has not finished his magical degree, and is therefore not a fully fledged wizard, going around helping other wizards with their wizarding problems. And the Ministry is like, we should probably check up on this. But Newt doesn't like the Ministry, so when they contact him, he just says no and flees the country. End of movie 1. Second movie, Newt is on the run from the Ministry in different countries, and this is where some of the information that we've gotten on Pottermore, namely the other wizarding schools, could be used. So he goes around to different countries, finds their beasts, learn how to work with them, helps the different magical schools so we kind of explore that, because that's a really interesting part of the lore that Pottermore gives us that we haven't seen whatsoever, not even Ilvermorny, which is the American school. So I think that could be really interesting to see there and see how he handles working in different cultures. Now throughout this movie, there's the Ministry presence. They send him owls. He gets one. He flees because he's like, I'm not dealing with this. I don't trust them. I'm not going to talk to them. And in my head, this is also where he gets the idea for the book. Probably some of the headmasters from one of the other schools he's at is like, hey, you know what would be really helpful if you like publish this so we could all have this information because it's really vital. And that's kind of where his ideas for that and his note-taking and his methods become a little more structured. And my idea for the ending of this is the Ministry going, well, he's obviously not answering, so we'll come to him. There's a discussion, some kind of ultimatum. And the ultimatum, if you really, really want him to be an aura, I should know how to pronounce that, but I don't in this moment in time. If you really want him to be one of the top tune wizarding police people rolling, then this is where you do it. I don't see why you would, considering he hasn't finished his degree and his skill set isn't in like hexing wizards, it's befriending animals, but you know, this is where you could put it. In my head, the ultimatum would be more like, hey, we could really use your skills, and if you come back to England, you stop like teaching everybody else unauthorized, you finish your degree and you promise to work from our magical beast department, it'll all be good. But, you know, that's kind of up to interpretation, though I think the last one makes a lot more sense. Third movie, Newt runs from the Ministry again. He's thinking about the ultimatum. They've given him some time and he's probably not going to take it, but he hasn't told them that. So instead, he goes to America. Now, this follows half of Fantastic Beasts 1 pretty closely. I like the idea of him going to America. I like the idea of all his beasts setting loose and him like just needing a little bit of knowledge to like finish his book. But instead of introducing Credence and Grindelwald and child abuse, we shove that aside. We also take the love interest and shove that aside, and we enter the brother again. Because he's been sent out from the Ministry to kind of check up on Newt, being like, hey, we haven't heard from you in a while, bro. Are you still thinking about our deal? And he sees what's gone wrong. He sees all these animals around. He confronts Newt, and together they collect all the animals, fix the problems, and also fix their relationship. You know, tie a neat little bow on that problem that we've been told is there. So he's reconciled with his brother, he's found the animals, he's finished his script, he goes back to England, the Ministry's there, they're like, hey, bro, how about a deal? He goes, no thanks. Sorry. Here's the book, though. They see that the book is probably something that they need in their educational system, and they kind of let him get on with his life and finish his degree without joining the Ministry because, you know, he's actually worth more out in the field. And in my head, we kind of fast forward a little bit and we see him become a professor of care of magical beasts at Hogwarts. Now I know Pottermore says that he's a zoologist. Why can't you be both? I don't know, can you? In my version, you can. So he does that. He continues like going out on business trips to find beasts. He works at Hogwarts, full circle. The school that kicked him out has now welcomed him back. He's helping his beasts. All is well in the world. The end. Obviously, you'd have little mini plots in between on each movie, but like I said, the overall arch is this construction. Now, the second trilogy, The Crimes of Grindelwald. This movie, or these movies, would focus on Grindelwald, Dumbledore, their relationship, and the ideology that they both share. Because honestly, those are the things that makes the story interesting. Not really seeing a white man take over the wizarding world and then fighting with another white man, unless that white man was his ex-lover and also used to share his ideology. So that's what we're doing in this version. This is also where the lore and canon gets a little bit more messy because it was a bit harder to find out. So, you know. This one also takes place over a longer time span, either each movie has like a few years it takes place over, or there's like years in between them. I haven't really figured that out, but there's definitely, we're talking like 10 years maybe altogether for the 3 movies, something like that. Movie number 1, we focus on young Albus and young Gellert. This is a summer vacation between some kind of school year. Gellert is staying with his aunt in Godric Hallows, where Albus is living. They become buddies, kind of their friendship is happening, and we see them kind of start to realize that their families are kind of suffering under this whole magical degree, saying that they can't be out in the Muggle world. And especially we see the impact on Albus's younger sister Ariana, and according to Pottermore and the Harry Potter books, was attacked by Muggles for showing off her magic when she was like a little girl and couldn't control it, which kind of messes with her, and she's forced to like hide it down. Albus's father goes to attack the Muggles, send off to Azkaban, because you're not allowed to do that obviously. So we see all of this happening and see them kind of seeing, hold up, if we're not allowed to be who we are, we're oppressed, it's a bit shit. And this is kind of where the ideology starts to take place. They also discover the Deathly Hallows by looking through history books and looking through, obviously, Bard the Beetle, and this part, I think, could take place, like, in their separate schools, so we also see Durmstrang, because, you know, it's quite fun to have, like, the Wizarding World expanded, and letters back and forth. The movie ends with Ariana having some kind of mental breakdown and killing her mother, just like we've been told happened. Movie number 2. The death of his mom fuels Albus's belief in their whole for the greater good cause. And through his grief, and also through their common ideology and goal for the future, Albus grows closer to Gellert and they become boyfriends. They spend a lot of their time at their school planning of how they can like make this Wizarding World happen in their future and what needs to happen through that letters. And they also plan to set out for the Deathly Hallows because they think if they get all of them, they will become the master of life and death and nobody can no longer suppress the Wizarding race. This is also when Gellert gets thrown out of Durmstrang. He comes back to live with his aunt for the summer. The 2 boys gear up to kind of leave for the Deathly Hallows, but Albus's younger brother Aberforth stops them. They fight, and this is when Ariana is killed. In the infamous 3-way duel where nobody really knows who shot who and who's to blame. Gellert flees the scene. Albus stays behind to kind of try and handle this whole funeral business. At the funeral, him and Aberforth fight. This is when Albus breaks his nose. It's also when Aberforth blames him for Ariana's death, and that really gets to Albus. So he finds Gellert, says that this is dumb, they need to stop, and he needs to stay here because they've already caused so much trouble, and he doesn't want to leave anymore. Gellert says, no, you're just being misled, you're weak, blah, blah, blah. They fight, they split up, they break up, Gellert leaves, Albus stays. End of movie 2. Third movie. Now this is where like the biggest gap has happened because Albus is now a young but accomplished transfiguration teacher at Hogwarts. And he starts to kind of hear rumors of this powerful wizard kind of gone mad who's like attacking muggles and starting riots and stuff, and eventually he finds out that this wizard is Gellert Grindelwald, his former boyfriend. Albus tries to reach out to Gellert through a letter to kind of say, hey, what you're doing is probably not so great, why haven't you stopped? Something like that, kind of like tries to point at their own ideologies, what's happening, try to persuade him to stop, basically. And Gellert's letter in return to Dumbledore gets intercepted by the Ministry of Magic, and I think it says something along the lines of, nobody can stop me in achieving my goals, not even you, Dumbledore. Or Albus. And the Ministry, because heteronormativity exists in the Wizarding world, misunderstands the sentiment of fondness that Gellert was trying to convey, and thinks that Grindelwald is in fact afraid of Albus's abilities. And so they go to Albus and go, listen, he's clearly afraid of you. You need to help him. Help us stop him. Albus, however, is not quite ready to face that because this is kind of cause he helped start. Also, it's kind of his ex-boyfriend whom he might still have feelings for. It's a little messy, so he goes, I'm gonna stay out of it for now, and continues his teaching at the Hogwarts whilst keeping an eye on what's happening. And what's happening is that Gellert keeps recruiting more and more people. The Ministry sends out wizards to try and fight him. They die in vain, and in the end, it's just so big that Albus just can't ignore it anymore. So he sets out after Grindelwald, and this is when the giant battle that we've been told happens, which is supposedly one of the biggest battles in the wizarding world up until Voldemort happened. However, in Rita Skeever's biography of Dumbledore, she says that eyewitnesses on the scene says it was more like Grindelwald waving a white flag and surrendering than an actual battle. And I kind of took note of that, because obviously, you know, she writes a lot of shit, but I think it would make it more interesting. So, in this version, there is a battle, but throughout it, Albus is trying to compel Grindelwald to stop, and he tries to use their former bond. He talks about Ariana, and he talks about the things that they've experienced together, things that are going on, trying to talk to his empathy and his human side. And in the end, he ends up distracting Grindelwald so much that he gets to stun him in a long time enough that he can be collected by the police and taken away to Azkaban. The movie ends with Albus returning to Hogwarts, and he burns all their old letters, all their old plans, everything that they've kind of worked on together, except his copy of Bard and the Beetle that they wrote notes in, and a photo of the two of them from the first summer back when they met. And he locks that away into a safe and puts it away, but he doesn't destroy it. Now, obviously, as I said at the beginning, this is just how I, one fan, would have liked to see this whole thing play out. So obviously feel free to tell me if you disagree, if you agree, which parts do you disagree, which parts do you agree with? Do you like what's happening now better? Do you not? Do you have a completely third way that you'd rather do this? Let me know in the comments below. I think this is really interesting, and Harry Potter is one of my favourite things to talk about because it's just been in my life for so long, and it's just such a great universe that's unfortunately, in my opinion, getting ruined a little bit with all the sequels and the prequels, but, you know, let's have a little discussion about it in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, I hope you have wonderful days full of magic and friendship. Bye!